I'm joining today from this podcast to talk about the episode finale of the Gilded Age. So the first season just aired at the beginning of January 2022. It's a series created by Julian Fallows, who also created and produced the Downton Abbey. And we're talking about the last century, the last 19th century in New York, the Gilded Age period of the American history, where basically we had this time of great achievement. People were building a lot of money, a lot of fortune. So I talked about that. If you're interested really in this period of the American history and what happened during the time, I made a video. You can go watch it. Maybe I will put the link if I manage to. It would be on the in the description down below. So it was a time where people were creating some fortune. It was also a time where there were also discrimination. We have like several laws, like the Jim Crow law following the Gilded Age period or during the Gilded Age period. We had also the Chinese Exclusion Act, and we had really great entrepreneurs like Carnegie and people, great families with money like Astor Family that were very present in that time. So this series is basically talking about that. So we had real character and fictional character. So I will leave into that for the history, and I'm going to talk about the episode finale of the Gilded Age. It aired, I think, last week. And of course, it's going to be some spoilers. So if you haven't watched the last episode, please go watch it before listening to this podcast. Okay. So we're opening this last episode with Marion Brook, who is one of the character. She is planning to escape with a guy named Mr. Rake, who was basically helping her when she lost her dad, and he came also in the New York society, and she's planning to escape with him to get married. So the only thing is like he's charming her with words, "I love you, I want to marry you," etc. So she's escaping her plan, and we have kind of different stories adding up and playing out similarly during this time and this episode. So we have also the Russel and Bertolt Russell here on the right, who is just, we talked about this family, new money, who managed to climb up the social ladder and becoming one of the most, and living in the kind of Fifth Avenue from the time. And she is hosting a ball, and we're seeing that she's mistreated by other people who were already established in the society, so what we call old money people. And still, yes, we have Lena Astor, who of course come from the Astor family, which is great family at the time. So I'm going to talk a bit about the Astor family because everybody know Jacob Astor IV, who is the part of the Astor family, but died on the Titanic in April 1912. So he was basically the son of Lena Astor, describing here. She had her daughter Carrie that we're seeing on the series, and she had also a son, and he died later on the Titanic. But it's a great family. They had a lot of immense fortune. So basically, their ancestor John Astor, he immigrated from Germany, and he arrived in basically New York, and he made his fortune through opium that he was smuggling from China, and also fur. So fur was very trade where there was a monopoly, and John Astor, their ancestor, he managed to get a monopoly because there were no competitor on this market, and he was selling fur, and he was one of the first multimillionaire. But like it was like family, and we're seeing in the Gilded Age that this family is well respected and basically is commanding every other family. So Lena Astor is commanding Mrs. Van Hine, and she's kind of butthead with Bertha Russell because she doesn't want to acknowledge her because she doesn't come from any family. She's just a self-made woman and self-made mind through her husband, the Russell, and she doesn't want to acknowledge them. So we're seeing this battle, and the fact that Berta Russell decided no longer to invite Lena Astor daughter to the ball, and then we are seeing how basically they're going to find a solution. But I think well, I'm going to talk about it. Which is what is very interesting here is that first Berta Russell is trying to go and see Mrs. Astor because she wants to be acknowledged, and she's remember the last episode she was like I think the episode before she was just like she was visiting her house, the Mr. House of Hearth, and because she's so not acknowledged, she basically people with her told her that she had to leave because Mrs. Astor was coming and she had to come out of the house through the kitchen. And for a woman of her rank, it's humiliating. So she went through this, and we can see that she's a bit fed up with the situation. Not to be rude, but she cannot bear this situation, and she is basically trying to speak to Mr. Astor, but Mr. Astor is still like she doesn't want to acknowledge her, and she's being very rude. Well, not receiving her. And I think what is very interesting is that uh, she like because Mr. Berta Russell no longer invite her daughter, uh, Mrs. Russell found a way to kind of she basically found the weakest point of Mr. Astor. She's like it's really the point where she is kind of sensitive because she lost her husband. She's a widower, and she has only her daughter with her. So when her daughter is a bit confused and a bit angry with her because she's treating Mr. Russell in this way and she's no longer invited to the ball, she Berta Russell kind of won. She won the battle because it was basically her it was basically her weakest point and she cannot do anything. So she decided to go to Mrs. Russell and to kind of see whether it would be possible for her daughter to attend to the ball. And what I like about Bertha Russell is that she is, even if she was humiliated a lot by the past, she's very calm and she get all her senses and she's like, oh, yes, of course, but you have to come and you have to apologize. And we can see like the two women, new money and old money, kind of get into a really really nice argument because not everything is with verbal violence, but it's this kind of verbal violence which is very nice that old money people have. I don't know if we can make an analogy with, I don't know if people who are listening to me have been in situation where there are kind of meeting people with a lot of money from generation, all money people. You have this kind of verbal violence that can occur. If they want to humiliate somebody, they will never do it out loud. It will be through, very, very subtle gesture or subtle words in order to make this person uncomfortable. And I will say that they are very good at doing that. And I think what I liked also is that the episode is showing us that Mrs. Russell, she basically accepted Mrs. Astor coming to her, but she came unexpected. And I think this was very rude because I think that Mrs. Astor is, of course, she has her standards, and she's saying it at one point. She's like, "Who am I if I don't have my standards?" And you had the man in front of her saying, "Yeah, of course, you're going to respect her." So we know that all money people, and I think that's interesting also to see today that we are kind of in a society where it's not very well seen to have a lot of standards. People will tell you you're very picky, but people don't understand that standard is also a part of the education of your personality, and it has nothing to do with the fact that you're snubbing people. It's just like you're like, oh, I don't want to get into those situations. I want to preserve my rank, you know. But at that time, it was a bit. But she came unexpected, and for me, that was very rude. Berta Russell is very intelligent, so she saw it, but she made a remark, but she's like, "Oh, but you would have to come," and she knows that by make if she made Mrs. Astor coming to her ball, she knew that she's going, of course, to warn everybody, and everybody is respecting Mrs. Astor. So she's going to win not only Mr. Astor, but the whole, uh, yeah, old money society. And we know when we make a comparison from the beginning, when we make an analogy from the second episode, for example, where her husband has to buy all the charity, stands in order for her to be respected, we can see that she managed. Basically, she went to the point, she won, because at the end of the day, everybody went to her ball and everybody accepted her, even if they didn't want to. And I think that's interesting also to highlight that she's like Mr. Mrs. Astor. She's writing, when she's writing to people, she made them come. You know, it's very very strong though, because at the time Berta Russell is like make them come. It's like she had really this power, and I think that's interesting to see. But at the end of the day, she like Berta Russell won, and I was not surprised at all, because as the Mrs. Astor's friend is saying, is like, if you don't let new people money come in, they basically going to create their own society, and you will be no longer a part of it. So you're going to lose your rank, whether you like it or not. And of course, you have money, and that's what there's always this. I think now it's more the from for countries where you have the aristocracy and you have people with a lot of money. They kind of mixed each other with each other, because they no longer, especially the aristocracy in some countries, they no longer had the money they had before, so they have to kind of mix themselves with everybody. So at the end of the day, Berta Russell won, and I really liked it. We have another story coming up in the same house, so the Russell house. We have the chief, like the cooker, Monsieur Boudin. So he's a French cooker. That's why Berta Russell decided to hire him. But he's going to resign because he has basically his former wife blackmailing him, and they discovered that he's not French at all. He's from the Kansas, so they decided make him resign, even if he already resigned. And they find a novice chief. It's Monsieur Charon, and who basically is coming to help them with the ball. So it's a big ball, but they decided to kind of fire Monsieur Boudin, because if anyone, you know, knew what was coming, that he's not a chief from France, everybody will have like Berta Russell, mocking. Everybody will teasing her and mock her, and she will have an impact on her reputation. So everything is about looks, you know. And I think what's interesting is that the Monsieur Charon, I think he really embodies, not to be rude for the French people, but really know, like I know France very well. So I think it's really like I think really the person he embodies really the character of French people. So he arrived, he's very arrogant, I would say Parisian, very arrogant. He doesn't want to have any instruction. He's the chief. He wants to do whatever he wants. He's treating other maid very badly. He's reckless, and we can see at the end that he's almost compromised the ball, because he was basically drunk when the ball started and no food was ready, and it was actually Monsieur Baudin who came at the rescue for the Russell family. So I think what was interesting is that sometimes, yes, you have an idea of course French people. I mean, France is known for the fashion, haute couture, but also for their gastronomy. And I think it was very good analogy sometimes of Americans seeing at very very hardworking, and it's very important. Their time is precious and they're very result driven. But French people is not really like this. They are last. They have their creativity mindset before having results, and they're not on time, and they're not like the standards and criteria are very difficult when they work together. And I'm talking very about like the cuisine and gastronomy. But of course, everybody loved the French gastronomy. But I think it's very interesting, and I think the producer, they really embodies, they really found a character, that Monsieur Charon, that was very like embodies the French archetype of cooker, or the arrogance and the recklessness and everything. I think it was very well made. I really liked it. Um, so we have we have the first story that I was talking about Marion Brook. She's trying to expect with Mr. Right, and she's basically really friend with Miss Chamberlain. So what I understand is that she had a lot of money. She's from the old money, but there was something to her reputation, and she's no longer invited to any kind of charity, and nobody's really talking to her. But Marion really liked her. And I think it was very interesting is that each episode, we had the we have of course the black woman, Miss Scott, who is representing this black elite at the time of the Gilded Age. But each time at each episode, what I like is that there is a reference at the time of how the white people during the Gilded Age was kind of behaving themselves, and how the black people were doing, and how each words were not really confronting themselves. Even if we have the character of this Miss Scott, who is coming to the history, and who is kind of, we can see how it is. But we have, yeah, Miss Scott, and I think what I like is about she of course embodied the black elite, but when she's in Mrs. Chamberlain, because she's helping Marianne, we have like at the point we have the waiter who is like hesitating to serve her, and for me it's it's still very strange to me. Um, but I think it was at the same time also, I think it's the fourth or fifth episode where you have basically Mrs. Scott with her father, and we have the white couple coming in, and they have to be they had to put themselves aside in order for them to pass, and I was like, yeah, help him, you know. But it's how people things were made at the time, because remember, after it was the Jim Crow laws, so what we understand with the black elite is that they were belonging to Brooklyn, and the other were belonging to New York, to Manhattan, and both words were not like talking or confronting each other. But I think this scene, you know, it was the slightest reference to the situation, like hesitating to pull her off. And I think what I really like about this story, but I think all the historical, series are trying to put it in. We saw it in Sanditon. We saw it also here in the Gilded Age. That they're putting more and more, not only diversity, because I don't like this word. They just putting more. They're doing more research about the black population living at the time. You know, sometimes we're trying to just focus on slavery, on what happened, and we're not really talking about those this black population of black alien living in New York, or also in England, for example, the black people that were living in England, they were not slaves at that time. So I think it's really interesting to make furthermore research about those population, and to put them into history, because we know that they have been excluded from the books for a long time. And as I said, Jane Austen is really at the end, and Sanditon, I think I really like what the producer said, because just to make a quick digression, but we're just saying that in Sanditon, even if like Jane Austen, she was only talking about like half mulatto, etc., they try to put on like more diversity, and they choose a black leading, woman, and I think I really like it. And the Gilded is the same. They could have like talked about the Gilded without talking about the black elite. I think it's really interesting to have this point of view coming in this series. So of course, as I talk about Mrs. Scott, I think it's so what we saw with the series is that she basically married, and she had a kid, but because her husband was not part of her social status, her father decided to put him away and to give the child to adoption. And now she's looking for her baby, and we can see on this episode that she thinks that she found her baby boy. And I think that what is very interesting here is that she is we can see that it was very heartbreaking. But at the same time, I do understand the position of her father wanting the standards to be respected. And even if he knows that her daughter is suffering, he made everything for his grandson to be able to be protective in a good family, but he doesn't want the reputation. So even if, because we know what happened to the Black Eliza, that they were slaves and then they move on to New York and they becoming these great pharmacists with a lot of money. So they had maid, etc. But they were belonging to Brooklyn, and I think that very interesting. And I hope that season 2 is going to dig a bit about the character of her father, where basically he wants, as the new money and old money people, white people at the time, he wants to preserve his social rank, and he wants to do the best he can for his daughter, even if she disagree. But she has been married and she had a son, so we are finishing on this episode with Miss Scott, who is heading to with her mom to, I think, another city where she's looking for her baby boy. So I hope we will dig on about more this character on the season 2, and I hope they're going to be season 2 because it was very interesting. Um, I want also to talk about something very interesting about this series, but in general. So I'm going to put a bit the history aside. It's just that it was a great time of the history, but I don't know if people found that the the kind of the tone of the series was very dark, especially with the music. It was very rapid. It was a bit dark, even if the for me the landscape of the series was beautiful made, but we can see that it was a great time, but everything is kind of a decision with life and death, not only with the business of Mr. Russell, but also with Bertha Russell. We can see that each decision that she's making to the eyes of other, it was as if it was a life or death decision. And I'm just going to quote Bertha Russell's son. He said at one time to his father, "It's a great city at a great time of history, and I want to be a part of it." And he's really highlighting, but I don't know if it's just the difference between our era and the era before, but I think even if it was a great time of the history, we don't have like this kind of there's no lack of seriousness. Everything is very serious, very well thought. Like even if they are building a great amount of money, it's it's very serious with them, not only with the setting but with the music, with the decision of mind, business or not business, social, everything is very serious. And I think it's what I like with the series. And I think if it was like too bubbly, too shabby, everything was good and beautiful, I think I wouldn't like it. But I just wanted to highlight this because it was something that I've seen at the end, especially with the music and just thinking about the whole series. So at the end, what happened is that when I'm coming back to Marion Brook, she decided to live with Mr. Rake. But what happened is like Mr. Rake, because he's just a poor lawyer because he doesn't have any money. He doesn't come from a great family. What we're seeing is that he saw what New York could offer him, but he doesn't have the social status. So basically, he was flirting with another young lady, rich lady, and we're seeing the end of the episode that Marion is waiting for them to escape, but because one of Mrs. Rodolph, one of her aunt's friend, saw him with another lady, she's just confronting him and telling him, "Oh, you just told me all this life, but you just wanted to be part of the New York society and you want to marry well off." I think we are coming back to what all the other series of Jane Austen told us, basically, about the fact that um, there is always this money and marriage. But I think Mrs. Van Rye told Marion at the beginning, but she's very young, but she told her that you're here to find a rich husband and you come from a great family, old money. But I think it's very interesting to see that Marion is very young, and of course she's making reckless choices that could affect very badly her reputation. And Mrs. Van Hyde was actually right, because she said from the beginning that she doesn't like Mr. Rake, and that she thinks that he is just somebody who's looking for a rich partner, and you can sense him. And it's true that at a moment he was kind of part of all the social event. And for a person who said that he was not interested in New York society, he seems to be very interested. So we're seeing this kind of marriage heartbroken, but I think she has the strength enough to bounce by and to make this up. I think she had other prospects also. I'm not going to talk about it. I hope this season 2 is going to tell us more about it. And yeah, he keeps saying that, oh, love you very much, but again, it's only words. And I think in Sanditon, in Jane Austen film adaptation, we've seen this. Each time we have one heroine who is like trying to find the great party. Either I love him or it's money, but it cannot be both. And it was at the time, and I think Mrs. Van Ryn really knows because she had to make this choice. She didn't like her husband, but she chose him for money in order to secure her sister and her brother. Because at the end of the day, he was reckless and he spent all the money of the family. So she knows more anything what is the cost. Everything has a cost, and I really like her character because she's very like she understands. I think she represents also all the seriousness of this episode. We can see also that everything was about the control of emotions because at that time it was marriage was also a life to death decision, especially for a woman like Marianne who is looking for a good prospect. So I think at a moment at the ball she's seeing Mr. Rake and she's kind of overwhelmed with whole emotion, and we can see that she's trying to kind of collect them in order to stay stoic, to stay with the good face on. And I just think it's something that she has to learn, and we are seeing as the character will mature, she will understand it. I hope she will not become like Mrs. Van Ryn, but she will understand that she has to control her emotion more than anything in this society. And I think there's one woman who understood that and she's practicing them very good is Bertha Russell, especially with Mr. Russell. She knows, like, she never every emotion that she's kind of showing is with her family privately, but otherwise she's trying to keep the good face on, and she never like showing like any type of weaknesses, because emotion was a kind of weaknesses. And I just want to make a last comment about Mr. Russell. So I'm saying a lot about the Russell family. Is that we have all this seriousness, etc. But he, despite the fact that he's very, very, very tough in business, and I think we are comparing him to Jay Gould, who was an American entrepreneur, so at the time of the Gilded Age, and was known for his questionable decision and methods in order to acquire some money. So the character of Bertha Russell and Mr. Russell are fictional, but I think at the time, with Monsieur Boudin, because he decided to keep Monsieur Boudin, even if his wife doesn't agree, of course, because it's not good to have a chef from Kansas. It's better to have a French cook. But of course, with Monsieur Charbon did it made, and Monsieur Boudin was there to save the party. And what I like also is that he said that I reward loyalty and punish traitor, even if it's for his own values. And I think that he really highlighted the fact that Monsieur Boudin was a hardworking, and he knows where he's coming from, because they are self-made man at the end. So it's the rags and riches story. You come from very, very poor or modest background, and then you climb up. And we know that his wife was basically cleaning houses in order for them to be there. So that's why I think it was a nice moment. It add a bit of softness to the character, and if we didn't see really Mr. Russell character, like the good side. We saw the good side with his family, but in business it was very tough and very questionable methods. And at the end, I think what I like, and I think it's again very American, not to be rude, but it was also the fact that we had one waiter who is like, it's the end of the ball, and there's looking, you have a range of maid and you have a waiter, a maid also. He's watching, how they're finishing and cleaning up everything after the ball, and he's like, and one of the men is asking him like, do you think we will be able to attend this ball, to be at this social rank? and he's saying, oh, after all, yeah, this is America, so anything is possible. So I think it was just a clinch to the American dream, and how the Gilded Age was representing this American dream. Even if some people may not agree with me, I think the American dream is still on the head of a lot of people. And I think the best time, after all, is the Gilded Age to talk about that. So I hope that season 2 will be very interesting. I hope we will dig in more on some characters like Mrs. Scott's father, or even Bertha's Russell's son. That I think, and that of course we're going to follow Marianne, who is one of important characters. So as she's, I will not say climb up the society, but as she's navigate through the society to find her prospect and her to make her own choice in life. So I think it would be very interesting. I hope you guys love this podcast. Of course, if you like, you can put a thumbs up and you can subscribe so that I continue producing. So I'm talking about a lot of historical drama, so there's a lot like coming. So the Gilded Age is finished, but we still have Sanditon, we still have other historical TV series heating up. We're just waiting for season 2, and I hope it will be great. I think HBO made really. I think it was a great show, and everything. The costume was, they were beautiful. Um, the music was beautiful. So yeah, I hope season 2 will be as good as season 1. Thank you very much for your time. Bye.